After 7 years of hard fighting, the Israelites are now free. Free to enjoy the gift that God has given. And so, with fighting behind them and freedom ahead of them, the 2.5 tribes which settled east of the Jordan now turn to go back home, where they've left their families, their wives, their children, their livestock, their livelihoods. All those things wait for them on the east. As Joshua releases them to go home, he says to them, look, you're going to be physically separated from us now, but you mustn't be spiritually separated from us. There is one true God. He is worthy of your worship. And so, while there might be distance between you and us, don't let there be any distance between you and God. Carry on worshipping Him. As far as the 2.5 tribes go, they seem every bit as much committed to the worship of God as Joshua wants them to be. And in fact, we see in their zeal, in their enthusiasm, they build a monument as a visible sign of their unity with the tribes on the other side of the Jordan. Verse 10, when they came to Geliloth, near the Jordan, in the land of Canaan, the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh built an imposing altar there by the Jordan. Now, immediately, this action is misunderstood by the 9.5 tribes who are now in the promised land. They don't see this altar being built, but they hear about it. Somebody reports back, evidently, and so we find, verse 12, the whole assembly of Israel gathered at Shiloh to go to war against them. Now, why are these tribes so upset and irritated and agitated by what they've heard, by this report? Well, because this has happened without any discussion, without any decision, without any communication. These tribes can't read the minds of the 2.5 tribes. All they hear is there's a second altar all of a sudden springing up somewhere else in Israel. What does it look like? What does this sound like? If you are a faithful Israelite, zealous for the glory of the one true God, what it sounds like an alternative religious system is springing up over there. There is to be one altar and no others. It is in the tabernacle at Shiloh and nowhere else. There must be no unauthorized religious offerings. Think about what happened to the sons of Aaron with their unauthorized offerings. There must be no unauthorized religious leaders. Think of what happened during the rebellion of Korah. God has been so clear about how he is to be worshipped. And now, just days after sending the 2.5 tribes back to their own land east of the Jordan, the tribes find out that this horrific thing has happened. Now remember that this is a generation now who has done what God has called them to do. They've seen the consequences of sin and rebellion in their forefathers. They are a zealous generation for the glory of God, and tough though it might be to take this reality, they will not stand idly by and let God's glory be snatched away from him by these 2.5 tribes. There's something honorable about their intention here, even if the intensity with which they pursue righteousness is far too extreme for their level of understanding. They all gather for war. At this point, the Israelites send a representative, Phinehas, who goes to talk with the 2.5 tribes. In fact, it's less of a discussion at first, more of an accusation. The whole assembly of the Lord says, "How could you break faith with the God of Israel like this? How could you turn away from the Lord and build yourselves an altar in rebellion against him now?" Now, in actual fact, that is not what has happened. And this is a lesson for us in not jumping to conclusions. This is a lesson for us in confronting sin, or suspected sin, with genuine humility. There is a reason why in Galatians 6 we read, "Brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently." This could have been a genuine civil war here over a simple misunderstanding. Now, thank God that it didn't come to that. The tribes east of the Jordan protest their innocence. You can almost hear the shock in their voice in verse 22. "The mighty one, God, the Lord, the mighty one, God, the Lord, he knows. And let all Israel know. If this has been in rebellion or disobedience to the Lord, do not spare us this day." And they go on to explain, they know that there is only one altar. It is in the tabernacle. This was never an altar intended for sacrifice, but is a simple memorial, a reminder to future generations. In fact, a symbol of unity between the tribes either side of the Jordan, that they serve the same God and are on the same side. So 2 lessons then. Firstly, the lesson of dealing with others' sins gently and with humility, and not importing the worst possible motives into the actions of others. It is also a lesson in the natural consequences of what happens when you separate from others. These eastern tribes have separated themselves from the rest of Israel. They didn't need to do that. That was not God's original command to them to enter in. And one of the consequences then of this separation is the potential for miscommunication and misunderstanding. Look, there is a reason why God's people are called to be close with one another, not just spiritually, but physically. A reason why we gather, a reason why we commune with God and communicate with one another. It is so that we might preserve the unity of God's people according to the wisdom of God.